Hello and welcome back to another recap episode of the Texas Private School Podcast. As always, I'm one-third of your hosting crew, Wes Tolleson, joining you from Dallas, Texas. Walker Lott, one-third of my hosting crew, joins us from College Station, Texas, whereas Ryan Schroeder joins us from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, as always. Walker Lott, another fantastic week in Texas private school football. I say that every week, but this week had some incredible games. Number one, how are you doing? Number two, your thoughts on the previous week of action.
Doing good. Great week of high school football. You're absolutely right there. And somewhat okay because the Cowboys are losing right now to the Ravens. Uh, if in the future we somehow win this game, I'll be very happy. But right now, very sad.
It's fair. That's how it goes. Putting your emotional faith in the Cowboys is usually basically suicide, but I think you would
I,
you would
I, kn-
come to know that.
Dude, I knew it was not gonna. I told myself before the season, don't trust this team. Do not watch most games. They're gonna hurt you. And here I am, still doing it. But
So it goes. Ryan Schroeder, it seems like you are everywhere in the state of Oklahoma every weekend. How was your weekend and your thoughts on the previous week of private school action?
Yeah, Friday night was great. Got to kind of watch just everything unfold from like bird's eye view with just all the games going on, whether that be the games y'all went to, and it was just a great week and stuff. And then I proceeded to watch my team lose in Stillwater. So let's just stick to Friday night. I think that's a way more better talking point for me versus Saturday, if that's okay with y'all.
That's fine. And we can transition to a talking point that I think everyone will also enjoy the pick records. Maybe me more
Yeah,
so than y'all,
yeah.
but basically, I forget the exact long okay, there it is. Let me make
One,
sure
eight,
because I
seven.
think it updated after. Okay, so there are one game updated after the All Saints game. It
oh
is
yeah,
now Walker is in first at 58 and 18. I am in second at 56 and 20. Ryan is third at 55 and 21. That more importantly, it's coming off of a 16 and 2 week for me where I made up 6 games on y'all. I won't gloat too long, but as the great General MacArthur said after he fled the Philippines in wake of the Japanese invasion, I shall return. I have returned. Walker Lott.
that's a bar. I can't say much. Yeah. I'm glad I got my 17 and 2 week out of the way earlier so I can have the lead still and get my bad week out of the way early too. So, good time. It's okay. We rebuild.
Ryan Schroeder.
Yeah, I know that sometimes in my heart I pick teams like Halville Sacred Heart and I pick other teams that I just are really in a bad hole and sometimes I get beat on a game winner on a 50-yard game winner. So, you know, things here and there. Sometimes you lose games, sometimes you win games, and sometimes you just pick games that you probably shouldn't have.
Yeah, I mean that's how it goes. I'm sure I will pay for this with a 8 and 12 week in the next couple weeks, but as of now, I'm going to take my victory lap and pray that it continues. But moving into our next segment, we are going to recap, as always, the TXPS Media football scoreboard that Ryan puts together every week, barring the 5 games at the top hand of the left hand column. We're basically just going to go through this a little different than previous weeks. Each one of us, or only one of us, is going to give one sentence on each game, so it doesn't take us 30 minutes to get through this from here on out. So I'm going to start with St. Mark's beating Trinity Christian Addison 54-25. A decent start to the season for St. Mark's, getting it over a decent team in TAPS D1. Shout out.
Yeah, I mean, a game of all games. St. John's at the wire, but Cannon Tune takes over. Second Baptist win. That's one of the craziest games we've seen this year.
Walker.
Absolutely. Southwood Christian beats Nolan Catholic 28-21. Shout out. You can't hide that Eagle pride. Shout out game time. But big win for Southwest Christian. Shout out to the guys over there. If you told me 5 years ago we were gonna win that game, I would have called you crazy. Anyways, good win.
Legacy Christian blanks Bishop Dunn 42-0. Ryan Schroeder's preseason prediction is starting to round into form. Undefeated in non-district, 500 in district. Not a bad setup.
Fourth Christian defeats Lake Country 48-7. You could say the boys are getting back to things in Fort Worth. Looks like the season's hot even after an early season loss in Houston.
Yeah, Cornerstone beats Midland Christian 42-24. Every time you drive up to Midland, it's a hard game, but Cornerstone comes out victorious. The top 10 team and probably TXPS this year is looking like it weekend after week. Week in, week out, I think is the term.
It says on the scoreboard, Cypress beat Refugio 41-14. That is flipped. Refugio tops Cypress 41-14. Can't take a whole lot away from that. We'll still have to see how John Kelly and the Warriors do in district play. Throw the tape out, in the words of Walker Lott.
Antigua Christian beats Shelton 20-14. Boys from Arlington are keeping their undefeated season alive heading into district play.
Yeah. First Baptist beats Covenant Christian 56-14. Big win for First Baptist over a solid D3 team. Covenant, it's going to be exciting to see what they do this year.
Lutheran South edges out Anahuac 54-51. I'm still curious on how LSA is going to shake out this season. They've shown some promise. They've had some down moments. This game is towards the promising end of the spectrum. Hopefully they can continue this momentum.
Waco Live Oak beats Austin Hill Country 41-14. Two teams recently 11-man in the past couple years. Waco Live Oak kind of putting it on for the city of Waco. Truly a blowout win for two new teams to TAPS 11-man. You love to see it.
Victoria St. Joseph nearly loses the Sacred Heart, the Division 14, 14-13. I believe a rivalry, I just was informed, a rivalry down there in that area. The City Boys versus the Country Boys. Victoria St. Joseph, the City Boys come out on top.
Can you consider people from Victoria from the city?
So supposedly it's like the biggest city in that area. And so they're known as like the City Boys because they have like 100,000 people down there in Victoria.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think so. I was told this. I could be wrong, but
we're just Dallas Fort Worth and Tyler kids. We don't know about everything. We get a little grass. we gotta pick our battles where we know.
I was about to say it's basically the same size as Tyler then. So I did not know that. Moving on. No, actually, I am the next one. Yes. John Cooper destroys Legacy Prep 57-6. Good win. I don't know if you can gather a whole lot from this for Cooper's season, but to see them absolutely dog walk a team is impressive. Shout out to Santiago Fernandez and the guys.
First game in SBC 3A, Oak Ridge defeats Cistercian 41-3. That is also another Arlington team undefeated this year. All you gotta say is these Arlington teams are putting it together, man, and it's a great way to start your district play for Oak Ridge.
Dallas Covenant wipes Munster Sacred Heart 41-0. The time of the Sorinsky brothers is no more, and Dallas Covenant wins big. Shout out to them.
TCA Willow Park beats Bishop Gorman 42-27. This just hurts my heart. As much as I used to hate Gorman, I now love to see the Tyler team succeed. Sad day.
Green Hill gets done against John Paul II of Plano. 42-0 blowout win. Green Hill's going to need to get it going before their start to this SBC 3A masterpiece is what it is of, high ups and downs. With them actually having a non-district game this week, it'll be interesting to see how their first district game actually looks inside of SBC 3A.
Austin LBJ barely wins against Parish Episcopal in this one. They finally get revenge for the past couple of years where Parish always had their number. But yeah, shout out to, what are those? Is it the Panthers? What is their mascot at LBJ?
It looks like the Panthers.
Yeah, we'll say Panther.
Those are both Panthers.
One Panther slays another. Moving on into the final game on the scoreboard, San Antonio Holy Cross continues their warpath, defeating Weimar 27-17. We put a lot of hype on the boys coming into the season, and they are delivering week in and week out. The only thing I worry about is I hope they're not peaking too early in the season. You hear that term thrown around a lot in college basketball in reference to March Madness. We will see. It will be interesting, but shout out to Holy Cross in that spot. But that being said, that is a much more efficient TXPS scoreboard recap, the style we will probably continue in the future. But thank you to Ryan Schroeder, as always, for putting that together.
Hi everyone, this is Waverly West with Texas Private School Media, and this week for Minute with the Interns, I'm going to be recapping Second Baptist win over Houston St. John's that happened this past Friday. So in this game, Houston St. John's, who competes in SPC 4A, traveled just a short distance down the road to take on TAPS Division II team Second Baptist in a battle of two different 3-0 teams that had an absolutely insane ending. So in this game, St. John's wide receiver Cole Allen had 3 different touchdowns, including a 97-yard kickoff return back in the second quarter, but that just didn't end up being enough to stop Cannon Toon and the absolutely electric Second Baptist offense. So in this game, like I said, it had an absolutely crazy ending. With less than a minute left in the fourth quarter, St. John's was up 28-22, and then Cannon Toon stepped up, as he has so many different times this season for the Second Baptist Eagles, and threw a absolutely wild pass to Alan Thomas on the run across his body to allow Second Baptist to end up winning the game 30-28. Next week, Second Baptist will take on the Kincaid Falcons, while St. John's will take on Lutheran South in a great game. That's been all for now, and thanks for listening to Waverly West with Texas Public School Media.
Last week, the TCA Addison Trojans traveled to Dallas, Texas to play the St. Mark's Lions for the first time since 2009. Both teams were 2-1 going into this game. At halftime, the score was 25-14 in favor of the Trojans. In the second half, the Lions completely changed the momentum of the game. They scored 12 points in the third quarter and 28 points in the fourth quarter, while allowing no points from TCA the entire second half. It's no surprise that St. Mark's is able to keep a team from scoring a whole half because of Henry Estes. He is a 6'4" dual sport athlete who is committed to play at Columbia University next fall as defensive tackle. The final score was 54-25 in favor of the Lions, and this week the Lions travel to John Paul to play their last non-district game.
Hello, I'm Bradley Hanna, and I'm here to recap the Parish Episcopal LBJ Austin game. So, the LBJ Austin Jaguars are going to take this one 48-47 after going for two after scoring the touchdown in overtime to win it. Despite the amazing game from Panthers QB Sawyer Anderson, the player of the game is going to have to go to Ali Scott, who's able to lead a comeback for the Jaguars as he went 9 for 12, 171 yards, and 2 touchdowns through the air. And he had 18 carries, 126 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. Parish Episcopal is going to move to 2-2 after the loss. Next week, they'll go on to play Legacy Christian. This will begin district play for the Panthers. Thanks.
Moving on, we will now recap our 5 games of the week from the previous week, starting with a game that Walker Lott was live and on site for, Bay Area at Brazos Christian. I would like to apologize. I called Bay Area the Mustangs in the previous episode. They are the Broncos, and I was known that by several people, and I apologize. Inexcusable. I'll impose some punishment on myself for that. But Walker Lott, the Broncos versus the Eagles, how'd that game turn out?
Yeah, it's both a type of horse. We didn't get the right one, but it is what it is. Yeah, from the first game, first snap of the ball, it was Brazos Christian's game to lose. They have never beaten they've never beaten Bay Area in their time. A lot of those kids were like 0-3, 0-4, 0-2 against these teams. So this was a big win for them on homecoming. They've also never won a homecoming game in the past 4 years. So this was also a big win for them. But for the first snap of the game, Cooper Murr dominated the first quarter. First play of the game, 60 yards to the house, QB keeper. It was awesome to see him. He's turning into a true dual threat kid at this level, and it's awesome to see. 2 touchdowns as well, 3 total in the first quarter for Cooper Murr and the team. Defense held strong. Kind of, stagnated in the second quarter, but still put up a couple points. In the third and fourth quarter, it was the Truett Goodix who scored 3 touchdowns in the second half. The senior athlete is awesome and, has lit up the stat sheet the entire season and did that again last night or on Friday. So it was a big win for him. Overall, there were some other guys. I think Jackson Caffey is now turning in from not the quarterback anymore, but that's okay because his versatility is off the charts of what he can do for this team. Swiss Army knife for both sides of the ball, which is really impressive for them. A guy who stood out to me, Isaiah Perkins, the wide receiver, was really important for them. Reed Jackson, a sophomore for them, man, he just runs tough. He goes 100% every play, and it shows in how he plays the game. Man, made some big time plays, PBUs on one side, tackles, and then a big runs on the other side. So he's an underclassman weapon they love to have on that team. Brody Gardner looked good. Ben Tillery, the whole team looked solid. I told him like I told him after the game, they have the pieces to make it to Waco. They absolutely do. And this is a game that showed them that they can do it over a team that is a Division III team and actually moved up to Division II. So this is a team that, if not independent, would be a D2 team, and they won. So that kind of shows, hey, they're pretty good this year. And they showed it again last night or on Friday. On the other side, Landon Hall looked pretty good. Cressman, the quarterback, looks okay. And then I wanted to mention one guy, and then we'll wrap it up here because it was kind of it was always Brazos Christian type of game. It was just didn't go Bay Area's way type of game. Keaton Hall, the 2028. I don't know how many freshmen we've seen this year, but he might be the most impressive one we've seen. Already standing at 6 foot, 175, made some big plays on both sides of the ball, had a 50-yard play, 50-yard touchdown pass. That was just impressive. He's a younger brother of Landon Hall, so that the Hall family is just helping out this team really well. So he's definitely going to be one to watch in the 28 class in TXPS. He's a good player, man, and I'm excited to see him grow. So one to watch for sure. But overall, a great win for homecoming for Brazos Christian. Excited for them. They have the potential to make it to Waco if they can keep putting it together. Hallisville had a solid loss to Victoria, so teams like them they're still gonna have to look out for. But yeah, good win for Brazos Christian.
Yeah, and I know that we talk extensively, about the storylines of First Baptist beating a Division II team and saying, would that be the greatest win in Division Force history? Well, very quietly, Brazos Christian has gone out and beaten, albeit independent, a Division II level team. I'm not going to say a whole lot because you wrapped it up really well. Is that going back to what Coach Washington told me at 7-on-7, being that as good as they have been the last few years, he feels like this is the year things are really starting to come together. You see that with Cooper Murray. You see that with Truett Goodyuk. You see it with Jackson Caffey. You see it with Brody Garner. You see it with everyone really, really gelling and growing. I'm excited. And yeah, I think they have a great chance to make it to Waco. I mean, I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. Ryan, any takeaways from this one?
Yeah, I just also wanted to mention how close Hallettsville Sacred Heart was to doing that same thing you just said, the D4 versus the D2 type thing. They're 1 point away from making that happen themselves, right? Just kind of that aspect of the D4 to D2 type thing of, those are really, really big wins, kind of just proving the talent that there is in D4. But the number one thing I look at here on Brazos' schedule is just that Central Texas Christian game, right? That's a game on October 18th that is truly going to decide this district. Two teams that are currently undefeated right now. And honestly, I think that's the game to look at when you decide who's going to be seeing First Baptist come December.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely one to follow. And as the season progresses, I think we're going to see all of those pieces start to fall into place. But we will now move on into an SBC 3A matchup that went incredibly different than the previous 5 years or so of them. Fourth Country Day at Trinity Valley. I would like to point out that I mentioned that Trinity Valley would have a man toting the rock, and Ben Nagishu fit that description, carrying the ball 43 times for 260 yards and 5 touchdowns as TVS beats Country Day 42-28. I mean, that's the story. That's the recap. Ben Nagishu. TVS said, we're going to grind you into powder, and Nagishu was the medium they used to accomplish that. That literally is the recap that I have. In terms of other stuff, Trinity Valley Junior Nicholas Watkins recorded an interception, and even in the loss, Country Day quarterback Connor Davidson threw for 212 and 3 touchdowns. But at the end of the day, TVS had a Ben Nagishu and Country Day didn't, and that's largely the result of the game. My question coming out of this one is, moving forward, is Trinity Valley the favorite in SBC 3A? There's obviously them. Houston Christian has performed well as of late. Country Day was going to be the other team that we had up there. TVS just mauled them. Walker, I mean, it's obviously TVS and Houston Christian, we think, but is there a case to be made for TVS at number 1?
I think absolutely. This was the win that showed that they broke the side of history. History was always with Country Day in this game, and they did not care. And last thing I'll say, 43 times is very, very impressive. Hopefully, the ice bath after the game was desperately needed. I don't even think Oklahoma State would run Ollie Gordon 43 times, man. And that's the best running back in the
not anymore. Not anymore.
Absolutely not. But yeah, big win for TVS. Shout out to them.
Ryan Schroeder.
I'll say no. I don't think it's TVS. I think Houston Christian is clearly the far and away favorite in my opinion.
You really don't like TVS this year.
Don't think they're that good. I think Houston Christian, from their non-district schedule, they're putting up points against LSA and a St. John's team that's incredible. They put up 17 points beat St. Pius, blew out St. Andrews. That's my personal favorite to win 3A, but how are we not talking about Oak Ridge? Oak Ridge is 4-0. I mean, I mean,
Yep.
that's truly another team in this conversation. You want to talk about Country Day, you want to talk about TVS. Houston Christian obviously is my favorite. But Oak Ridge is definitely in that conversation as well. Like we keep saying, 3A is up in the air, but and so I obviously Oak Ridge does need to keep winning games in district play for me to think that. But yeah, Green Hill hasn't played a district game yet either. I mean, they're a team that's been off and on with some of their games, but I don't know. I think my true favorite is Houston Christian, just based on the fact that they had a blowout win this week. Some really competitive non-district games, and overall, they're just that team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be hard pressed to disagree with you. I think, like last year, it's going to be Houston Christian and TVS at 1 and 2, moving into wherever they're going to play the state title game this year. I would assume Houston. Actually, I don't know. Maybe it'll be Dallas. Who knows?
It
But
flips,
that is, that is the recap we have on Country Day at TVS. Let us move into a game that I was live and on site covering: Dallas Christian versus Prestonwood. The Lions run wild in Mesquite as Prestonwood tops DC 49-9. The size difference between D1 and D3 was most apparent in the fronts as Takashi Shaw and LJ Taylor ran all over Dallas Christian. Even in the absence of bell cow Caden Collins, the Lions just made it work. We got our first look at junior quarterback Luke Glass, who has emerged as the starter in Plano, and the 6'5" gunslinger was impressive as he was able to find star wide receiver Matthew McLean and name and forest transfer Jonathan French Love. For Dallas Christian, Syracuse commit Luke Harney was impressive regardless of outcome, as was SMU offered running back Titus Muse. Going forward, because people are going to maybe use this as a yardstick game for DC. I think that's a mistake. I think Prestonwood, even just going down their roster and seeing how many dadgum people are on their roster, it's closer to a collegiate level team than it is a TAPS D3 team. I mean, it's wild. But in the overarching context of D3, because we always have to wrap this somehow because it's DC and Holy Cross. In terms of DC, they're young in a lot of spots. There's obviously a lot of turnover. Their secondary is a little bit suspect. You don't have Will Nettles back there. You have some, from an outside observer looking, you've got some pretty glaring holes that I would assume that competent teams will take advantage of. Prestonwood would have more so if it wasn't so easy for them to run the ball. However, they have a long road of subpar competition that should lead to the state championship, and it's going to really depend on how well those young guys and the secondary can develop before they hit Waco. Like I said, there's a long runway before they have to get there, but they need to start doing it now because time is of the essence. In terms of Prestonwood, you can't take anything away from this game. You destroyed a D3 team, albeit a 3-time reigning state champion Division III team. It's what they needed to do. There's significantly lower competition for them. But Matthew McLean and Glass and Takashi Shaw and Collins when he gets back, I mean, I've said it before. I think they are within that top 3 elite level of Division I. It'll be fun to watch them moving forward. Walker, any comments, concerns regarding this contest?
No, I'll keep it like this. This was David and Goliath if it went the betting odds way. You know what I mean? Like this is how the game was supposed to go. So,
Ryan.
Yeah, the exact thing I'll say as well is Prestonwood is clearly the upper echelon of the D1 side. I mean, even TAP side in general, or just private school in general, they are truly near the top. It is ironic how good TAP's D1 has gotten with the addition of Liberty and Parrish, but Prestonwood would dog walk most every other team inside of private schools. So for it to be against a team like Dallas Christian, who just doesn't have the depth, is not fair, as like we've all said. But yeah, I mean, we don't need to go down this tangent right now. I know we'll eventually talk about it, but the way D3 kind of sets up itself right now is obviously it really is a Holy Cross Dallas Christian looking type scenario in state. But you look at Lubbock Christian and Dallas Covenant, teams that are kind of falling in those footsteps behind. it's just really interesting. And the one key point I want to hit on before we go next is the fact that Dallas Covenant is one of those teams that, goes 3-0, shuts out three of their opponents, but then gets run by a First Baptist team that's incredible. It's really hard for me to say that there is any competition for teams like Dallas Christian and Holy Cross, who look so much farther ahead than the rest of their division. And I think you can even see that whether you try to measure that against Prestonwood or not. Dallas Christian is still, like we've said, one of the top teams in D3, no doubt.
Absolutely. I mean, to argue that they aren't is asinine. The only real the only real storyline in Division 3 for me is Holy Cross and Dallas Christian. I really
it.
cannot
That's it.
bring myself to find anything else. Back in the day, we had a Grace Prep in there, a Trinity Lubbock. Lubbock Christian is a team we haven't heard a whole lot from yet this season that should be primed to make some noise.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how they play in district, because quite frankly, I don't care about all the West Texas public schools they play. It means nothing to me. All that being said, 2-horse race for sure, maybe a third in Lubbock Christian. Don't know. We'll see.
Yep.
Moving forward, we are going to recap Brownsville St. Joseph's at Austin Regents. As sophomore quarterback Jack Devine accounts for 35 of the night's 49 points, as Regents continues a path towards domination, beating St. Joe's 49-14. Senior Roman Patson was Devine's favorite target on the contest, reeling in 4 receptions for 142 yards and 2 touchdowns, with Bobby Long also scoring on the night. Regents as a team rushed for 184 yards spread between 6 players, with Devine hitting pay dirt twice and Sam Pope once. As for St. Joseph's, our man on the ground said Claudio Torres as well as Diego de la Cruz was impressive. So shout out to Jacob Garcia for giving us some great information on the game. One of the maybe the first time anyone affiliated with TXPS has been live to watch Claudio Torres, Diego de la Cruz, and St. Joe's. So yet again, thank you to Jacob. But Walker, I think this is kind of what we expected. I said on the space after Jake detailed it. Yeah, that was my expectations, was that 3 things. Number 1, Regents was going to win in pretty dominant fashion. Number 2, actually 2 things. Diego de la Cruz and Claudio Torres look great. Is there anything else that surprises you from this? Because that's about what I expected.
No, with Claudio Torres got 2 touchdowns as expected. He's always going to get his. And the rest of the Regents team looks solid. Looking at their schedule, though, I mean, this looks like it's going to be their hardest game the rest of the way. I mean, you might have a Grace Community. That's going to be a tough one. Hyde Park at the end of the season. This might be the toughest game they have, man. And they blew them out. So, yeah, it's pretty much kind of, hopefully they just don't coast. That's the only advice I have. Don't coast and stay committed. Ryan,
Regents good? ?
Yeah, Regents is good. I just like talking about these D2 quarterbacks, man. When it comes to Jack Devine, Gavin Parkhurst, Cannon Toon, all elite quarterbacks in D2, and they're going to be the ones fighting when it comes down to the end of the season. You're exactly right, Walker. You can't coast. I mean, Regents, we've said this for years, it feels like. Whether Regents switches districts or not, it feels like they always get put in a district where they can coast through. But yeah, you can't get caught lacking. And whether Brownsville St. Joseph Brownsville was one of your hardest games that you're going to have to play, you still got to take every game like you're going to win in order to finish your season on a high note heading into playoffs.
Yeah, have fun on the buses, guys.
I cannot believe that's a thing. We got to ask the guys at TAPS how that happened. But moving on into the last game, we're going to cover a little TAPS SBC action and what will probably end up being the game of the year. This was an absolute insane game. All Saints survives Garciles ESD 42-39 in an absolute thriller. Our buddy Spencer Pattison was calling play-by-play for this game. I was watching off and on while watching A&M have a stinker of a game to Bowling Green. We won't go into detail there. But, I mean, this was just insane. From my high-level overview, ESD, got out to a lead and then kept it within All Saints for a while. All Saints jumped out to a decent lead. ESD jumped back forward at the end. I actually got Spencer's thoughts here, so I'll paraphrase a few of them, and we'll see how the game went. The biggest story was Johnny Willingham for ESD very well could make the quarterback room interesting. He went 20 for 40 with 5 touchdowns, 2 picks, and 307 yards in his first varsity start. Yeah, he was making throws only a shortstop could make, as he is the shortstop for ESD baseball. Crazy coincidence. The ESD O-line gave Willingham time to work with an incredible All Saints defensive line. You got to shout out the Hogs up front. That's really, really who determined how ESD stayed in the game. Hutch Chipman and Siler Cook really helped Willingham out. I mean, we've spoken at length about both of those guys. Chipman on the defensive and offensive end. And then Siler Cook is a guy that we've had our eye on since last season when he was a sophomore. But another thing that kept ESD in this game was penalties given up by All Saints, 14 for 149 yards. And we have said this for a while, and Ryan hammered it home a few weeks ago. Penalties kill All Saints year in and year out. Even against teams they should blow out like ESD, the amount of penalties they commit will end up hurting them. Again, it's not a scathing critique one way or the other. It's just what I've noticed covering All Saints for several years. It's being undisciplined at times. You cannot be undisciplined. And for them to continue in a state champion season where they have those aspirations, they've got to clean that up. Like, it's now or never. But yeah, Gavin Parker still stepped up and had a great game, going for 356 yards, 3 passing touchdowns and an interception, 79 yards on rushing and 2 rushing touchdowns. Comonte Williams had 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. Honestly, All Saints didn't even play that bad. ESD just looked really, really good, plus the penalties hurt them. But yeah, long story short, ESD was down by 11 with roughly 3 minutes to go. They had 2 massive 15-yard penalties, one of them being on 4th down. They score with 1:30 left on the clock, go for 2, succeed. Then they're down by 3 after onside kick. They recover the onside kick. However, they try to move it down the field, and then Willingham had a pass deflected at the line. It was picked off by Caden Richardson, and All Saints won. First of all, shout out Spencer. Thank you for basically letting me use your words verbatim in my script. And also, he said that's I think he said that is the greatest football game he's seen live. Yeah, ESD gives All Saints a scare. Walker, I wanted to say, as a measuring stick game, because we talked about All Saints being the far and away favorites. Second Baptist, ESD gave Second Baptist the business for a little bit, but they pulled away and won by 10-ish. All Saints seems to be more talented than either of these teams, just a bit more undisciplined. How do you think this game shapes how we're looking at the upper echelon of Division II being Second Baptist and All Saints?
I mean, this is a great measuring stick. That both games were really dang close, and both teams had to come back kind of and win this game. It's gonna be interesting. Second Baptist is usually a team that doesn't, they kind of do their thing. They don't really have a lot of penalties go their way. It penalizes them, and All Saints does. And if it comes down to it, and that's something that happens, I mean, that could get interesting. But overall, I mean, shout out to All Saints, man. You got to pull out the win. Gavin Parkhurst is that dude. We've said it since week 1, and he pulls out another win. On the other side, ESD, I don't know what you could take from this game, because it's like they're a good team, but aren't they like now like 0-3?
They're 1-4. They're
Right.
1-4. This is the best. I wrote this down. This is the best 1-4 team you've ever seen in your life.
So it's kind of like, okay, we play the gauntlet of gauntlets in your non-district schedule, which is awesome for any team, but you lose a lot of them. So like, that's bad, but like it shows that you can play with the big boys.
And by the way, they're a contender in 4A. They're absolutely a contender.
That's kind of the question out of it.
Right.
Are they? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because they played close with them. St. John's played close with SPS last week, right? And so those teams are pretty similar. And then it's going to be interesting. Kincaid plays Second Baptist this upcoming week. Is that going to be interesting? See how that parallels. ESD and Second Baptist are basically the measuring sticks for like every team that's good in the state of Texas. Like, that's basically how it is.
It's because Second Baptist decided to book every SBC 4A team they could get their hands on, it felt like. And then, ESD's
that builds for a heck of a non-district schedule, because 4A is nasty.
And then
it is. Yeah.
So I've always said it, but like, you really don't, you mean it, but like you're like, I don't know if it's gonna really be true. Is like they are a title contender in SBC for it. They've always been a team that like they beat one team, cause chaos, but they can't get the next team to get into the title game. They've always been that type of team, right? Maybe they can do it again this year. You know, you have them. Kincaid looks really good. St. John's with Cole Allen, you never know. And then now with Brody Bartia at the helm, the sophomore at Bel Air Episcopal, who they look solid now. They just beat they lost to West Orange Stark, but it was a close one against a talented 4A team. Like those 4 teams in SBC 4A, man, I have no idea how it's going to pan out, which makes it even more exciting. Ryan?
Not to mention the fact, I was just going to go on that point. St. Mark's gets a comeback, or St. Mark's gets a comeback win this week at TCA Addison. And then at the same time, John Cooper blows out Legacy Prep. Every single team in SBC 4A is throwing themselves at a wall here.
I'm not sold on St. Mark's, dude. They
that's
almost
fine.
lost to Green Hill week 1.
That's fine. That's fine. But I'm just saying.
No, I agree with you. And I'll add it because I just found out news today on my drive home. TCA Addison lost Ryan Elms and Zane Williams, their star running back, as well during that game to a broken leg. So like that's why it was close, and then it got left out. That's why in the second half it was bad for Addison. But so TCA Addison might live up to our ranking and our Tabs D1 ranking for the bottom because of injuries that happened today or on Friday. But still, it's Texas high school football, and the best teams have to be injuryless. But anyways, to your point, SBC for it, man. This is gonna be crazy.
The final thing I'll say about this whole setup and stuff, and I'm gonna switch back over to the team that actually won this game. Yeah. All Saints in that same vein, right? You know, we talk about Gavin Parker's. It's crazy how all these quarterbacks in D2 have like their, number one receiver, or for Jack Devine, it's Roman Patson and Blake Smith, but like Gavin Parkerhurst has, Hugh with him, Camonte Williams, Cannon Toon, obviously has Alan Thomas. Like it feels like there's that connection for each of these guys. They're star receivers. I don't know, man. Obviously the talent in D1 at the quarterback helm with Quinn Murphy and Sawyer and all those guys, right, is super, super, talented TJ Hobbs. But the difference I feel like is just that like these D2 guys truly are like the connection with their team, because I feel like everyone's good on the D1 teams. I feel like these D2 quarterbacks truly shine out and bring it for their teams in my personal opinion. But yeah, all that to say, it's another crazy one this week. A crazy week in total.
Okay, looking at this, right? And I'll end it with this, and then Wes, you can wrap us up. When looking at TAPS Division 2 and TAPS Division 1, right? For the past 5 years, okay, who won a state championship, right? In TAPS D1, it was Sawyer Anderson going to Purdue, Prestonstone going to SMU. For TAPS Division 2, you had to have a D1 quarterback. So Shadur Sanders going to Colorado, Drew Dickey to Vanderbilt, Luke Carney to Syracuse, Brady Dever to Brown, and Cole Oliver to UConn. If you do not have a D1 quarterback at this level in TAPS D2 or D1, you're not winning it. And I mean, but the thing about it is, what I'm saying is,
I don't know if that's correlation or causation.
I think, but okay, you have to have a gamer at quarterback. That's basically what it is. Drew Dickey brought them to the state game. So I know DC's a little different, but like Luke Carney at that time was still a solid quarterback. And last year, Cole Welliver, if you bring in just a guy going to D3, yes, you're gonna have the best receiving core in the nation, but he elevated that team so much as Cole Welliver did. Like, so you have to have a dude at that quarterback. Now, the interesting part is too, I mean, think about it in D1, Quinn Murphy, Sawyer Anderson, and then Luke Glass, who we're going to see how he is. But in D2, the top 3 teams in D2 this year, Jack Devine, who I think is a D1 quarterback, Cannon Toon, who I think is a D1 quarterback, and Gavin Parker, who committed to Rice. All 3 of those guys are gamers, and they bring their teams and they elevate their teams. You have to have a quarterback who elevates your team. I don't know why this was kind of a point, because it's kind of obvious, but it is true. Like, you have to have a dude at quarterback to win a title.
That's fair.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the most important position for sure. And I'll dig into it a little bit more to see if I actually agree that that's, the causation there, or if the more talented teams just naturally draw good quarterbacks. But
when he heard Shadur Sanders, his mind turned off. He didn't really care anymore after
it's less my mind turned off and more that like I just started seeing red and thought violent things. But yeah, no, that's about how it goes. Oh, we have 3 minutes until our intern meeting, and I forgot about this, so I'm just gonna say it now. Ryan Schroeder, album song name is now onto you because it's gonna be too easy for Walker.
Okay.
I've got 2 Joji records here. Can you name me 3 Joji songs?
Oh, yes, I can. Okay. I literally hear him in my head. This is the problem. It. What's the one that's dancing? What's it called? Not Dancing in the Dark. That's not what it's called, is it?
Well,
No.
You're very,
yes, but
very close.
very.
Dancing in the Moonlight or
No,
no?
you're missing the word
It's
right
slow
before.
dancing in the dark. I'll give it to
Yes.
you.
Slow Dancing in the Dark. Man, I know so many more. I feel like I'm on the spot right now, which I am. But gosh, Slow Dancing in the Dark is my favorite. We'll just go with that. That's my one. I don't know if I have many others besides that off the top of my
Okay,
head.
I'm gonna go to Walker. Walker,
Yes.
I need. Could you give me 5 songs off of Nectar?
Nectar. Okay. Afterthought. Your Man. What's the? Oh my goodness. TikTok. Is it Modoc? Is Modoc a song on there? No.
Modus, I'll give it to you.
Modus. You. Yeah. I think that's it.
TikTok bangs. How you didn't say like you do hurts me because I think that's the best song on the record.
It absolutely
Maybe I'm
is.
just a
Good
really
point.
sad individual, but that's how it goes. Ryan, I don't know if you're looking it up. Any other Joji songs stand out to you?
World Star Money. I love World
Oh,
Star
yeah.
Money. That song is
So-
incredible.
It goes hard. I learned that on guitar for a period of time. But yes, if people haven't already figured out, that probably is Walker and one of Walker and I's favorite artists. Maybe we're just sad men in general, but that's a perfect way to wrap up the episode. As always, I have been 1/3 of your host and crew, Wes Tolleson. Walker Lott and Ryan Schroeder have fantastically been themselves. Keep an eye out for us in your feed on Thursday evening, where we will preview week 5 of Texas private school football. Until then, see you later.